Okay. Yeah, the topic today, from California, USA, all
Yep.
the way to Kathmandu, Nepal. The
Yep.
topic is what's going on in the US election.
Presidential elections. Yeah.
That's presidential election, yes.
Yep.
And I will say that I was happy to be visiting with you in
Yep.
Nepal in
Yeah.
2016, right after the
Yeah.
US election.
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah, we remember that. It was a wonderful visit.
Yes. 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 I was in Washington and New York at that time at the Republican and Democratic National Convention. I was in from my friend's home from Virginia.
From Virginia, yes.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. They were contesting in the election.
They were. And the night of the election, when they were having the results come in, I was in
Mm-hmm.
Mumbai. And
Mm-hmm.
I had just arrived in India for a visit. And then
Mm-hmm.
when that visit was over, I was very
Mm-hmm.
happy to fly up to Kathmandu and had a wonderful hospitality from you. So
Yep.
it's a strong memory of mine. And
Yes. Good.
I will also say this may come as a surprise, but there are a number of
Yeah.
Sherpas that live here in my town in Sonoma, California. They
Yep.
are very hardworking people. They work in
Mm-hmm.
the hospitality industry. They
Yeah.
work,
Yeah. Yeah. I know that. But I
yeah,
think the California is the place of the Democrats. I think the senators, governor, almost the, the
yes, you have a very good political knowledge of
yeah, yeah,
California and the US.
yeah.
California is what they call a blue state, meaning the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Democrats.
yeah. I have been to California, San Francisco, LA from Kansas 1.5 years ago.
Oh, yes, and this was a very great disappointment to me because when you were here near San Francisco, I
Yep.
was up the coast
Yeah.
providing a tour to a lady from Australia. I was
Yeah.
showing her the California coast, and I missed you when you were in
Mhm.
San Francisco. So we have to
Yep. Yep.
work out our
But
travel
fortunately,
schedules.
I got a chance with my friend Siba to drive on the Pacific Drive to
Yeah.
to see the Google, Facebook areas, and my friend's daughter's house. We had a neighborhood food. It is Pacific Drive is very very interesting
Oh,
during my
very, very
visit to.
interesting. Well, of
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
you are a very experienced and a good traveler,
yep,
right? So let me begin with our conversation, and I
yep,
will talk for a while, and then we'll have questions at the end, if that's
hmm,
okay with you.
yeah,
Okay.
yep,
So, we have these candidates running for president and vice president. President
hmm,
Trump, and who's the
hmm,
incumbent, and then Vice
hmm,
President Pence, who served with him. They were elected
hmm,
4 years ago. But then
yeah,
there are two other candidates running. One is the former vice president under Obama, and they
yeah.
call
I
him
know.
Joe Biden. But then there's a
Joe
very
Biden and Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris, who is
Yeah, yeah.
only a first generation American, first generation. Her mother came from India, from
Hmm.
from from
Yeah,
Chennai.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah,
we know
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So
Very good, very good.
yeah, and
Yep.
actually, she is the first Asian person to run for national office in the United States. So
Yeah, good, very good, very good.
that's very good. It's very good. And
Yeah,
so I'm going to talk about where we are in this contest, in this race,
yeah.
and how we got here after this long process, very unique in the
Yeah.
world. Not that it's
Mm-hmm.
the best or even good, but it's a long process in the US. I'll mention the
Mm-hmm.
three phases of this campaign. I'll talk
Mm-hmm.
about the driving issues,
Mm-hmm.
which would be the driving forces. And then we'll talk about who looks like a winner, who looks
Mm.
like a winner today, and then what the election process is, and the significant dates in this process. And you will probably
Mhm.
learn things from me
Mhm.
that most Americans do not know.
Mhm.
So about the significant dates, and then we'll talk about the confusion or crisis that could occur. And then also a new element I added to this talk, which is
Mhm.
the transition to a new
Mhm.
government. And then we'll do the
Mhm.
Q&A. So
Mhm.
if I may talk about the state of the race, it's
Mhm.
the election day is 12 days away, so very close. But
Yeah,
because
the
of
3rd November. Yeah, 3rd November.
November 3, people are
Yeah.
voting in
Mhm.
40 states, and it's
Mhm.
estimated that more than 37 million people have already voted
37 million.
by
Mhm.
37 million in 40
Mhm.
states. And
Mhm.
California started voting 2 weeks ago by
Yeah.
mail ballot.
Mhm.
So, and of course, as you know, from your knowledge of the US, this
Mhm.
is not really one election nationwide. This
Mhm.
is 50 elections because
Mhm.
these elections are conducted in each state. And we
Mhm.
have a person, an official person in each state that is either elected or appointed by the governor. And they are the chief election officer. And they
Mhm.
count up the votes. They have people that count up the votes and report them, but they're important people. And I think
Mhm.
we will hear about them after November 3rd.
Mhm.
So, very quickly, and you probably know much of this already, we have 3 phases to the campaign. It
Mhm.
started almost a year and a half ago, let's say June, July, or August of 2019, where there were
Mhm.
candidates announcing for
Mhm.
for president. They would organize their committees, they would raise some money, and they would tell
Mhm.
people, I want to be president. And there were
Mhm.
23 Democrats that entered the
Mhm.
race ultimately over the following 4 or 5 months. That was
Mhm.
the first phase. The Republicans, 4 years ago, there were about 18 Republicans. And this is
Mhm.
both of those contests were unusual to be that many people,
Mhm.
usually only 4 or 5. So the
Mhm.
second phase is what we call the weeding out, the vetting, the candidates falling away and others staying in. So we have 2 aspects to the second phase. One is the primaries, which means in
Mhm.
many of the states, they
Mhm.
determine who is going to go to the national party convention, who will
Mhm.
designate someone. So
Mhm.
you have these primaries conducted different ways in the states. And then we
Mhm.
have the actual conventions themselves, where the people
Mhm.
who've been elected go and
Mhm.
officially nominate their candidate. And there's a lot to be
Mhm.
said for that. We won't dwell on it, but that was a very intensive process that went on during, I would say, February until June or July, the
Mhm.
primaries. And then there was the conventions in August that we had those
Mhm.
conventions where people were nominated. And it was only
Mhm.
in the last week before the convention that Joe Biden
Yeah.
picked Senator
Mhm.
Harris.
Mhm.
So the third phase, which is where we are today, we're in this phase, and that's only 9 weeks long. And in many ways, probably that's as long as it should be. I think in the
Mhm.
UK, and you probably know this, that in the
Mhm.
UK, they have a short campaign for
Mhm.
control of the government, I think maybe 5 weeks. But
Mhm.
anyway, the general election campaign starts after the Labor Day, which is the first
Mhm.
Monday in September. That's when the Americans finally come back from their vacation. So we're in the last phase, as I mentioned, less than 2 weeks to go. And in this phase, the highlight of this phase is the debates. So usually there are 3 presidential debates and one for vice president. We had the first presidential debate, which was shocking and dismaying to many people, the behavior of both of the candidates, especially Trump. And then the second one was canceled because of some technical issues, which we won't get into all of that. Um, Now, the third debate will be tonight. And when I say tonight, I mean Thursday. It's Thursday already in Nepal. So
Yeah,
Thursday,
yeah, yeah. It is a Thursday morning.
right, right. It's in the morning. So anyway,
It is
uh,
half past 9 at Nepal, Kathmandu.
right, it is. So
Mhm.
it'll be probably early in the morning when they actually have the debate. But that will be a big opportunity for
Mhm.
each of the candidates to have their say. And I think we can expect, as observers would call it, a lot of fireworks, a lot
Mhm.
of conjecture, a lot of
Mhm.
statements made back and forth. Now, in more recent weeks, President Trump has been traveling all around the United States by airplane, having his
Mhm.
rallies. And the
Mhm.
rallies are controversial because most of the people don't wear masks. And
Yeah,
no mask,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
thousands of people. But he's
But
no,
they must wear the mask, yeah, because this is for the protection of virus.
right. It is protection of
Mhm.
everyone. So he has these very, very big rallies, similar to what he had 4 years ago. And Biden has had very few appearances, very
Mhm.
few appearances. And in fact, for the last 5 days, he has not had any appearances. He has
Mhm.
stayed in his home.
Mhm.
So, and that may be a wise strategy because he's
Mhm.
leading in the polls, the
Mhm.
popularity polls, he is leading. So why should he come out and say anything? And
Mhm.
this reminds me of the campaign of 1948.
Mhm.
Now, I read about that campaign. I was alive, but I was only a child. And in that
Mhm.
campaign, the Republican candidate had the strategy of Joe Biden, which was to
Mhm.
say very little because he was ahead in the polls. So he
Mhm.
didn't campaign. Whereas President Truman in
Mhm.
1948
Oh,
went
true,
all
man.
around the United States by train and he had
Mhm.
rallies. So it could be that, like 1948, the active challenger, the active candidate, the incumbent president, could win because he's out visiting his supporters. On the other
Mhm.
hand, Biden is ahead in the polls, and we'll
Mhm.
we'll talk more about that as we go along. But generally,
Mhm.
there are two types of polls: the national poll, which represents opinions across the U.S., and then
Mhm.
polls in individual states. The national polls will show Biden ahead by 9 or 10 points. That's a big lead, a big lead. Although Hillary Clinton was almost ahead by that much 2 weeks
Mhm.
before. And you go to the state polls, the state,
Mhm.
and there Biden is ahead by less, sometimes only by a little. But in the important states that Trump carried the last time, the battleground states,
Mhm.
Biden is ahead only by a couple of points. So this
Mhm.
could narrow even in the next 2 weeks, and maybe because of
Mhm.
the debate. So let's talk
Mhm.
about the driving forces in this campaign. It had been expected that the economy would be very important because Trump had a good record, I think, in the economy, the U.S. economy. Growth, low unemployment among Blacks, Hispanics, Asians, women is what his campaign would say. Uh, on the other side, the Democrats would say, well, the income is not distributed to everyone. It's unequal. It is inequitable. So there's an issue there. In other words, the rich get richer, but the poor people have not been doing well, according to the Democrats. So
Mhm.
the economy would have been the big issue, maybe even a winning issue for Trump until the COVID-19 pandemic came and it's affected everything everywhere. And right now, the American people believe that Biden will do a better job on the COVID management than Trump, and that's upsetting the traditional kind of politics that we have where the economy is number one. Now, there's another issue, which is kind of a technical issue for the US, the vacancy on our Supreme Court. We could spend
Oh.
45 minutes talking about that. But anyway, the Democrats, as well as a majority of Americans, feel
Yep.
that the vacancy should be filled by whoever is elected president on November 3rd, not now. But the Republicans, seizing the political advantage, they are going to have their candidate, the president's nominee, selected probably next Monday in the United States Senate. And so, but most people feel that you shouldn't do it before the election. You should do it after. There's a lot to be said for that. But in the meantime, so it's an important issue for Republicans to get this person on the court. And the Democrats have a good argument that you should wait till after the election. But I think the Republicans will be able to do it. So let's see. Also, we would say that they've got strong, the temper, the energy in the race, strong for Trump, not strong for Biden, but the anti-Trump vote is going to Biden. So Biden is benefiting from all the people who do not like Trump. So not so much favorable to Biden, but he will get the anti-Trump vote. So another quick issue here is social justice. And many people saw the sad situation of some police brutality in certain cities. And some of that went from peaceful protests to rioting and violence. And that generated the other side of that issue, which is law and order. So the Democratic people and the Biden people say, we need social justice in the United States. The Republicans and the Trump supporters say, that's true, but we have to do it peacefully and have law and order and support the police. So that's an issue. And how many is going to turn out on each side? Now, of interest, I think, to you and the Institute for International Relations is national security or foreign policy. That has not really become an issue in this campaign. Now, the second debate tonight, we would say, will be, there's 6 topics that will be in the debate. The last one is national security, and they only have 15 minutes to talk about that. And those of us who are interested in international issues are disappointed in the short period of time to those issues. I think probably what's going to happen is Trump is going to talk all about the allegations against Biden and his son, who have had alleged financial activities with China, Ukraine, and other countries. So we'll see how that goes. Trump has tried to make an issue of charges of corruption against Biden. And of course, Biden will ask, well, what about your taxes? Why haven't we seen your taxes, which they keep asking for? Well, okay, let's go now to who looks like the winner in the polls. We talked about some of this already, but I would say that Trump, who won certain swing states, states that Republicans did not win before in many years, he won them, but he won them by very few votes in each state. And part of that was probably a result that Hillary Clinton was not really a good candidate and did not visit those states enough. Now, in 3 of the states that Trump won that were critical to his victory, he only won by 87,000 votes. And that enabled him to get these electoral college votes, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But Clinton would always say, well, I beat Trump by 3 million votes nationwide, and it's not right that he was elected president. Well, here in California alone, Hillary Clinton won over Trump by 4 million votes. 4 million votes in California. So if you didn't add California in the national total, Trump carried the popular vote in the rest of the United States. A lot of people don't know that, but that was true. So anyway, right now, as I said earlier, Biden is ahead in the national polls, 9 or 10 points, and he's also ahead in the individual state polls. And the important battleground states, which Trump needs to win again. And these are states which you probably heard of, maybe visited: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Ohio. Biden is ahead in most of those. So if he wins all of those, he's going to be elected. And he's also challenging Trump in Arizona and Georgia. So, but the race is tightening, as it always does at this point in time.
Today in the North Carolina, he has a campaign, yes?
Yes, he does, right. That's an important
Yeah.
state.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, North Carolina, right. So now let's turn to the actual election process here. As I said, this is not a national vote where they simply add up all the votes and whoever gets the most wins. Doesn't work that way, because Hillary Clinton would be president. Al Gore would have been president in the year 2000 if that had happened. But this is done by states. So way back in the 18th century, as the US was writing its constitution, the last issue that was addressed, because it was difficult, which was, how do we elect the president? And in those years, they didn't have popular votes very much. So they said, let's take our 13 colonies, our 13 states, and we will give each state a number of electoral votes equal to the number of senators and the number of representatives they have. And essentially, that's where it is today. What has changed during the 19th century from the 18th century is that the states no longer have the local jurisdiction. The legislators pick the electors, but the people vote on them. So the names of Trump and Biden are on the ballot, but really behind the ballot are the electors. There's a team of people, and the American people are voting for the electors. So I call this the election of the electors, not a popular election, really. So also because of the mail-in ballots, we may not know the outcome of the election on November 3rd. It was very close in the year 2000, and many people think it's going to be close again, because the ballots, these mail ballots, which you may have heard about, there are two types of ballots. One is still call them absentee ballots, but you might say that they're requested. In other words, you go to the local jurisdiction and say, send me a ballot that I can mail in. So, but that's a request. It used to be you would only do that if you were going to be traveling. Like when I was traveling to India, and Nepal, I asked for an absentee ballot because I wasn't going to be there to go to the polling place. So that's one type. And most of the states have that. Probably 40 states have that. But there are states, I think there are 7 of them, that have what are called universal ballots. Universal, which means everyone that's on the voter rolls is sent a ballot. They don't have to ask for it. It's sent to them. And then they fill it out and mail it in. And that's why we already have 37 million people have already mailed in ballots because they have either requested them or they've been sent to them in a universal mailing. Now, here in California, we have 21.5 million ballots that have been mailed out. And they were received 2 weeks ago, and 24% have already been returned. 24% already returned. So they're going to be counted. So we'll see what happens. So that leads me to one of my final topics, which is what are the significant dates in this election? And I'm going to tell you these dates, and there are two of them that you will know, which most Americans don't know if they'd have to inquire. One is November 3rd, everybody knows that. Then there is December 14th. December 14th is when the Electoral College meets. And that means all these people who were actually elected in the states meet in the capital of the state and they cast their ballots. But those people have all promised to vote for Trump or Biden. So there really will be no surprises there. So that's when those votes are cast. And then what happens is that the votes are signed and put in an envelope and sent to Washington. And we have both houses of the Congress. They meet on January the 6th. January the 6th, they open up the envelopes and they count the ballots and they declare the winner. Now, we have a pretty good idea on December 14th who has won, but that's when it's really done. That's the official announcement. And then, of course, there's January the 20th, which is the inauguration. So those are the four important dates. So let me now briefly talk about the confusion or crisis. In order to have an electoral college meeting in your state, you have to have the chief election officer of the state, which I mentioned earlier. They've got to say, we've counted all of the votes, and the electors for Mr. Trump or the electors for Mr. Biden have got the most of the popular vote, and they are declared, their electors are declared the winners. So you've got to have the process finished, and the process includes comparing the signature on a ballot with the signature of record. There will be ballots that will not have signatures, or the signatures do not match. So some of those ballots are going to be rejected. So the county election officials have to contact people who haven't signed or who, let me admit someone here, they have to count them up and make sure the ballots are valid by signature is what they would do. And so they've got to do that by a certain period of time. And that's why they have to have it finished before December 14th. So there's going to be a lot of legal challenges because there'll be ballots that will be lost or misplaced, and they still have to be counted. They may come in late. And in different states, there are different dates by which you can receive the ballots, the mail ballots. They all have to be postmarked, postmarked by November 3. So they can be received after that date, but they must be postmarked by November the 3rd. So I think you can look for a lot of news about legal challenges to the counting of the ballots. So that could lead to some confusion. Now, if for some reason no one gets 270 votes, then there's another process to select the president. And that goes to the House of Representatives, where the vote is by state. And that's more confusing to talk about. But so this is all in the Constitution, again, a document from the 18th century. So now let me finish up.
It is already mentioned in when the Constitution of USA in 1779, July 4, your constitution was drafted and promulgated in the 1779, July 4, yes?
That is correct. Well, it was independence declared in 1776. They had another form of government and a new constitution in 1787. 1787. And the colonies at the time, the US states, ratified, they approved the Constitution. And then the
Yeah.
following year, 1788, they had the first election. So, and the government came in officially in 1789. But anyway, that was all from a political theory, which they would call the Enlightenment, and a lot of philosophy from the late 18th century. And after many of these elections here in the US, people always say, let's forget about the election, the Electoral College. Let's get rid of it. But it's a difficult thing to do. It's a difficult thing to get rid of the Electoral College and to change the method. Very difficult. But this is kind of
the electoral college depends on the number of senators and House representatives. Yes.
Yes, that is correct. Each
just
state,
like California, New York, they are the big states, and they have the number of House representatives. Yes.
You are correct. That is correct.
Yeah, the small states like very small states, they have the different House of Representatives.
Well, it's like
to the lower house. Yes.
Lower house. Yeah. Well, you've been to Kansas, I remember. And that's one of those states that has a very few electoral votes. I think probably 8 or 9 at the most. And North Carolina has 15. California has 55.
55, yes.
So you have to have a lot of other states.
Yes, even I have a directory of the U.S. senators, U.S. Congress handbook. I have still in my hand. Yes.
Yes.
I can. Siddhartha, I have 113th Congress first session. यो कसै मेरो पनि हेर्न मिल्छ? यो मेरो
There he is. So
yes, yeah. You can see.
Oh, you have that. You have that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. When I visit to the Washington D.C. area, every time I like to go to Capitol Hill, senators and House, both sides. Yes, I like to go.
Good to do. That's good.
Because I like during the democratic movement of Nepal, when the king had the power at that time, I have visited every senator's and congressman's office. Yes, for the democratic campaign for Nepal.
Well, we have to talk about that at some time. So let me finish up here with my last topics. Well, we talked about the confusion. So that was one thing that can occur. And we'll, as I say, watch the news during November into December, and we'll see what happens. So for confusion or crisis or both. So the last topic that I've just added is what we call the transition. So this is getting more attention because if Biden wins, there's going to be a lot of attention paid to this if he wins. Now, the transition from one government to another, they have the transition team appointed usually in August or September. So Biden has had certain people that are thinking ahead to if he wins, what do we do? and who do we have in the government? And so that's what they'll be working on. They're working on now, but they don't want to spend too much time on that. They have to win the election first. Win the election. So, as far as the transition team is concerned, really, it used to be fairly simple. A few people would work on it. Now it's very organized in 3 parts. Here's what they are. There's a transition team, and they usually start after the candidate gets the nomination, especially if this is a challenger, not the incumbent. So they will form, or if you have 2 challengers and no one's the incumbent, they will appoint people to help form the government. And this happens about right after the nomination. In this case, it happened in August, September. The team now is 5 people, co-chairs, co-leaders of the team. But then they also have a staff. They have a staff that's appointed. So there are people now being paid to think about how to select people for the government. So they've got a paid staff that's doing that. And the third part is there's advisory people. And those are people in your party, your supporters, who you want to say, well, I will listen to you. Give me some names. Tell me of people to appoint for foreign policy, for healthcare, for civil rights. So there are 15 people who are advisors to the transition team. And so right now, they're working very hard to win the election. But if Biden wins, then they will really make things happen, because they have to pick the cabinet level people. So right after the election, they'll be selecting the cabinet and White House staff. And most of these positions have to be approved by the Senate. And many times they will approve whoever the president appoints as a courtesy, because they say, well, he should be allowed to have his own staff and determine. But sometimes there can be a controversial person that they don't like. And if it's an opposite party running the Senate, there'll be problems. So anyway, we're looking ahead to Election Day in less than 2 weeks, the election of the electors. We're looking ahead to the Electoral College, the contest over the counting the votes, and then if Biden's elected, a transition of a new government. So there you have it. And I will send you a list of books about other campaigns if you're interested, and you can make that available. But
I hope you will send me all the election information on my email. Yes.
Yes, I will do that. Yeah.
Because I'm very much interested to see the U.S. presidential election, because U.S. has a very long history of democracy, long history. So that we have to learn from the USA Constitution, lifestyle. Yeah.
So So let's see. When are your elections coming up?
Ooh. Pardon?
Oh, when are the next national elections in Nepal?
Oh, 2.5 years.
2.5 years. Good. Well,
yeah.
Hopefully you can do it faster than we do it.
Because this right now our party has is in the opposition bench. Right now the so-called Communist Party is ruling the country, but very, very unpopular right now.
Well, I can understand that. Well, let's see. So do you have any other questions for me?
What are the major issue of the Joe Biden, in the international democracy, trade, terrorism, security?
I think the number one issue for him is the management of the coronavirus
Yeah,
And so
coronavirus, number one. Yeah.
that's number one. That has become more important than the economy. But
Mm,
when he does speak of the economy, he speaks of the
mhm.
inequality of income and wealth. That he's saying that Trump has favored the rich. So that
Mm.
is his position.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I'm listening that the more than 200,000 people are already died due to coronavirus. Yes.
that is
Because
correct. That's a hard
yeah, yeah,
number
yeah. It
to
is a
live
very
with.
measurable in USA because due to this pandemic, the life of the not only USA, the whole even in Nepal, very much terrible. Due to this pandemic, the economic lifestyle, everything. Even we are celebrating our greatest festival like Christmas. We cannot go out. Even I cannot go to my you know that my hometown Chitwan
Yes,
due to this situation. This is very bad for
yeah,
us also here.
yeah. It is. And of course, if there are bad things happening, you
Mm,
can easily blame the
mm,
incumbent, the party
yeah,
in
yeah,
power.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
So,
Wuhan is the main uh, center of the coronavirus. Yes, yes, in China, and sometimes President Trump blamed to China. You are the major cause of this spreading of this virus. Yes.
right. I think
Uh,
that that's something which the Democratic Party and Joe
hmm,
Biden, they don't think anything is to be gained by
hmm.
pointing a finger at another country.
Because after Donald Trump came into the White House, the international major issues are raised, like nationality issue, the very much uh, strong in USA. Number one, and number two, the China USA trade is not good, yeah, and
Very
sometimes
true.
the Indo-Pacific security issues up now, yeah.
That is true.
Uh, is a
Well,
South China Sea issues,
they already have.
the old health organizations we draw of donation to WHO and climate change issues. These international issues are very much important for us also. So that
They are.
when
They should be important, and I think that Trump was not happy with the actions of
Mhm.
the World Health
Because
Organization.
US is leading in the world, USA first, his slogan, because so that we know that I'm a Democrat. I'm a Democrat. Yes, I mean, even I did campaign in the U.S. Senate, and I met the Senator Sam Brownback in the
Oh, did you? Yes,
Young
yes.
Republicans convention in Las Vegas. But I did talk with him for the support also.
Right.
Mm.
Was he in the Senate at the time, or was he governor?
He's a governor now. Yeah.
Now he's a governor. When did you see him?
Yeah. Ah. Oh, so I met him in Las Vegas.
Uh-huh.
It's a Senator Sam Brownback and some senators, congressmen, they did raise the issue for the movement of Nepal from the man, some and the California senator, the lady that is, I actually forgot her name. As I said, they raised the issue for the democratic movement of Nepal.
Uh-huh.
Feinstein.
Feinstein, yes.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah,
she
yeah.
used to live, well, still has a place nearby to where I live. She has a summer home
Oh.
on the coast.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I admire all of
Because
your
the
travel.
picture of the international uh, event due to the President Donald Trump, because the US's image should be clear and must be changed because the trade war between China and India and the other health issues, WHO, climate change issues, because America must be there. Because America is the leading country of the world because number one is that it has a democracy, it has the human rights issues. Yes, so that these are the fundamental issues for the global governance and global issues.
Yes, I agree very much so. I think the U.S. was recognized as the leader in
Yeah,
democracy, promoting democracy globally.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So when was the last time that you traveled out of the country and where did you go?
Nepal.
And when did you last travel from Nepal and go to where?
Oh, last year I have been to Russia, Sochi.
You were in Sochi. I
Sochi,
was in
yeah.
Sochi in February of 2019.
In October, there was Bhaldai International Conference in Sochi. And at the time, the President Putin, the King of Jordan, President of Philippines, Azerbaijan, I could see them very closely in Sochi. And the international Middle East issues, South Asia issues, the 3 days we had a very good discussion on the international issues.
That's very good. No, I think that the Russians take a good approach to convene
Yeah.
people.
Yeah,
Well, I'm speaking at
especially Iran issue, Jordan issue.
Yeah.
Before that, I came to USA for the one EMU of the campus in Kansas, Missouri,
Oh yes,
and I came
saw
to
that.
San Francisco.
I
Every
saw
time I would love to travel by Amtrak and the Greyhound.
Right. Well, that's the way to see. You know, I was born and brought up in New York City.
In New York, oh,
Yes.
Queens.
No, Staten Island.
Oh, it's Staten Island. Yes.
Right.
But I used to live in Long Island
Oh,
for,
that's right. I remember that.
Long Island for 5 days, 6 days.
Yes. Well, the first time I came to California, I took a train across the U.S.
Oh,
New York to San Francisco.
oh yes. I did travel from San Francisco to New York by Amtrak. Amtrak. Yes.
Amtrak. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, Amtrak from San Francisco to. I changed my train at Chicago.
Oh,
Right
yes,
now,
yes. I did the same
and
thing.
then I came to Penn Station in New York.
Yes,
3
we
days,
changed
4
trains in
nights.
Chicago.
Very much interesting travel from across the country from Pacific coast to Atlantic coast. I like USA.
It is. It's a wide country. Well, back in
When I was a student of high school, I sent in 1984, I think, I sent a congratulatory letter to Ronald Reagan, President Ronald Reagan. At that time, I was in high school, and President Ronald Reagan sent me thanks letter from USA.
Oh, really? Wow.
Right? Yeah.
So now you spend a lot of time with your sons who are growing up fast.
Yeah, my two sons are here with me at Kathmandu.
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, of course, I think I met them in Chitwan. No.
Yeah.
Kathmandu.
Yeah, I think in Kathmandu, Chitwan, my brothers were there. My father was in Chitwan. Yeah.
Right. So yes.
Because you are a president of Sister Cities International, we have to make very good connections with some towns, with American towns.
Yes.
Bill?
I have not forgotten that. Forgotten that.
You were welcomed by my municipality. Yes, I have a lot of photos during the yeah.
Those are wonderful photos.
My friends, they welcome to you at our Tribhuvan Municipality.
Yes.
Right now, this municipality is dissolved, and right now we are in the metropolitan, Bharatpur metropolitan.
Right. Well, that to me, I say this sincerely, is
Yeah.
unfinished business unfinished business for me. So we will get that done. So, well, this has been a wonderful conversation. I've enjoyed seeing you again and hearing your voice. Who was the gentleman that signed on before, who was on for a little while? Who is he?
Who, Mr. Will?
Krishna.
Krishna?
Krishna was on.
Pardon? Krishna?
There was a fellow Krishna Adhikara.
Vishnu Dhakal?
Adhikari, Krishna. You know him?
Who is he? Krishna?
Oh, well, maybe he came on and he was on and off. So
He came to USA, yes? Mr. Som Bhandari? Ram Hari.
Oh, yes, right. Well,
Mr. Som Bhandari.
Forgetting about
yes, they joined in the international conference.
Yes, right. I remember that.
Suvidi.
Well, this is
Babu Krishna.
So we'll see. Maybe we'll talk again in December or something. If you wish, you let me know.
Yeah, sure. I'm closely watching the U.S. presidential election because I'm a Democrat. I believe on the democracy. So that election, so that I'm watching closely the U.S. election, whether Trump or Joe Biden win the election. It depends on the voters of USA. Yes,
It depends on them.
We want to see the U.S. the leading country in the world forever because you have the democracy.
Right. That's a very good point. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad we could speak together.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Bale. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.